Hi, I'm Diane Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a certified clinical hypnotherapist and, of course, national board certified coach. No other than Mr. Garrett Wood.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Garrett. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, as you said, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and an executive well-being coach. I've opened my own practice in 2018 in Southern California, and I work with clients remotely as well. So I'm lucky to have clients all over the world, which is really rewarding.
Really rewarding indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. When loving your job is not enough, the real reason high achievers still burn out. Can you tell us about this?
Oh no.
Mr. Garrett? I think Mr. Garrett is disconnected while we are waiting for him.
Trying to
I'm inviting you to
reconnect.
please listen to
Stable
my other
internet.
podcast, people. My other podcast. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Garrett. I think you're something our connection.
I think it should be okay now. Are we
Yes.
back?
Yes,
Sorry
we're
about
back.
that.
No worries. No worries at all. So my last phrases is when loving your job is not enough, the real reason high achievers still burn out. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, I mean, we've all probably heard the cliche that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I think a lot of people get seduced by that if they're in a position at an organization that they're not a big fan of and they feel themselves being bored and disengaged from the work. And they have a side project or a passion and they go, oh, if I could just get this passion and get paid for it, life would be perfect. And for a lot of people, that does make a difference. The grass is greener on the other side, actually. But then there are other people out there where that actually is what leads to their burnout. They're so passionate, so over-identified with their work that when things come up naturally, it actually puts them in line with burning out, which is what I see with a lot of my high-achieving, high-masking professionals. And they're confused. They show up, they're like, what? I thought I was doing everything right, and here I am still burning out. What's going on?
There's something wrong beyond that thing. Beyond long hours, what are the less visible psychological and systemic factors that make high achievers uniquely vulnerable to burnout?
So if people really care about the work they're doing, they get a little obsessive about it. So little things they can't let go because they're excited to see that change. They want to see it implemented. They could see what could actually be better about the work and they want to make that happen. And so where someone else might clock out for the day or their mind would be able to go off to another task, their family, their friends, whatever hobbies or interests they have outside of work, if your hobby is your work, when you're off the clock, you're still working. So a lot of small business owners, leaders, passionate people find themselves stuck working hours that they're not getting paid for.
Indeed. What role do perfectionism, relentless self criticism, and the pressure to appear effortless successful play in draining high achievers?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you always have to be on and you don't feel like it, because we all have highs and lows, we have days where we feel great, we have days where we don't feel great. But if you're not allowed to express that low day, or it doesn't feel safe to for yourself, for your own personal reasons, or for the environment you're in, that gap between how you're performing and how you're feeling adds up. A lot of people think that they can fake it or face it till they make it. And it might work to get them through that day or that week. But when that becomes their only strategy, it's not probably more than 90 days before that catches up with them pretty quick. They might start seeing it in their health. They might start seeing it in their negative mood. They might start seeing it in their relationship with their dog. Their dog might just be an innocent dog, but that day it's really stressing them out, and they see themselves getting more short with their children, their friends, their family, their partners. And that's like the first signs of burnout, actually.
Indeed. Let's talk about the hidden drivers and systemic pressures. How does a lack of control over workload, priorities, or process, even a dream job, accelerate burnout more than sheer volume of work?
If you have to work a job that you care about, but you're not allowed to work it the way you see that it should be done best, that is a pretty frustrating experience for most people. If you see an opportunity, then you're like, this would be great if we did it this way, and you don't have the freedom or the autonomy to be able to make that happen. That gap there is an emotion that you have to kind of stifle in and continue to work anyway. And that frustration is really draining for a lot of people. When burnout was first discovered, it was mostly with emotions that were being stifled to be professional in like a healthcare setting. So if you're an ICU nurse, you see some tragic stuff, as you would, and you're going to have some emotional reactions to it. But to be professional and to actually do your job well, you kind of have to stifle that down. And so some of that stifling of the emotional work, that emotional labor that doesn't show up on our paychecks, is the largest contributing factor to burnout, besides the long hours, obviously.
Very well said, Mr. Garrett. Beautifully articulated. Very well said. Can you love your role but burn out because of the organization's actions like ethics, pace culture, conflict with your core values?
So that is one of my most surprising things. There's an author, I have a book right here, so I'll bring it out, Richard Barrett. So I don't know if you can see that
Yes.
there. This whole book is literally just
Amazing.
essentially about that. He's an accountant originally, and he would audit companies and he would see them go bankrupt. And he started seeing a pattern where the individual values and the stated values of the organization started to diverge. And the more they diverged, the more challenging it was for everybody to get anything done.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Done in the organization, and eventually it hit the bottom line so much that it started causing bankruptcy, insolvency in a lot of organizations. So that's how he moved from accountant into development. He got into some spiritual stuff later in his career. But right there in the middle, he starts doing accounting of values of a person versus the organization. And the more gap there is there, the harder it is for you to feel comfortable doing your work. And you have to choose between doing what you think is right and doing what is best for the company. And that choice isn't something we're good at as people. Some very specific people are great at that. But for the most majority of us, we have a lot of emotions that come up when we have to do that. Yeah.
Totally agree with you, Mr. Garrett. Why are high achievers especially prone to boundary erosion in remote, like hybrid work?
Yeah, because they're passionate about the work. They want to see it done as best as they can. And so a little thing here and there, an extra tweak, if they actually do have autonomy over their work and they're able to use their strengths, in the moment, they get pleasure for being able to do that. They get to see the work being different because of a strength about themselves. So that symbiotic relationship really does something for them, for most of us. But in this day and age, there's more work than there is time in the day, just like there's more social media than there is time in the day. There used to be like 3 channels and then 20 channels and then 200 channels. But even at that, you stopped, you got off.
Yes.
Now it's social, you scroll forever. Work is not too dissimilar from that, especially if you're passionate and driven and caring. You see what's possible and where it's at. And it's really hard to draw where that line is enough for that day or that week or that month. And that's where people get in trouble.
Indeed, people are in trouble right now. They are lack of sleep. How do incentive structures like promotions, praise, bonuses that celebrate over functioning or crisis heroism perpetuate unsustainable effort?
Yeah, I think we've always heard like, this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. And you got to be disciplined and pay attention. And the funny part about that is like a marathon is still only 2 or 8 hours, depending on how fast of your fitness is. But work's a little bit longer than that. It's more than 8 hours in a day for some people, and it's more than one race a year for a lot of people with their marathons, or even a month. It's every day. And so that idea of coming to rise to a crisis and calling more for yourself is a really awesome strategy. High achievers can do it, but they can only do it so many times without accommodating more recovery. And so knowing what you need specifically to recover is really important. And then knowing when the cutoff is, where you have a hard out, you have to stop. Overtraining is the number one reason most people don't cross a finish line in a marathon. And that's kind of the same type of stuff that we see in burnout as well. It's the consistent crisis management to get to the next title, the next promotion, or to get the organization through a hard spot. When that becomes the day-to-day, every day, that's when we're in trouble.
Mr. Garrett, what does neuroscience reveal about how chronic high achievement can dysregulate stress responses and deplete cognitive resources?
Yeah, I think when we're well rested, well fed, emotionally stable, we have healthy relationships, we are aligned with the values of our organization, ourselves, and the meaning and the strengths we use for our work, we can push really hard for a long time, and we can get comfortable with that. And so that we can pride ourselves on our resilience. But there's kind of a measure of resiliency that's a biometric, where it's like heart rate variability. And there's a bunch of little like wearable, adaptable things that you can kind of test with that, which I think is pretty cool. But they've done studies where they've taken people with really high scores of heart rate variability, put them in challenging environments for a long period of time. They come back and they're able to get back to baseline pretty quick and get back to high performance pretty quick. But if someone's heart rate variability is limited and they go out to that same environment, same experience, it takes a lot more out of them when they're there, and it makes it even harder to get back to baseline, which means that before they go back out again, they may not be fully back in baseline. And so when we do that cycle, out of the window, in, out, in, the longer we are kind of out of there, the harder it is to get back, the easier it is to get out. And so over time, we kind of see that erosion of that ability for that heart rate variability to be present. And that's a really strong marker of resiliency that we can talk about outside of morals, values, mindsets, virtues, and really just have it be solidified in biology.
Mr. Garrett, as a certified clinical hypnotherapist and national board certified coach, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
For me personally, it's to be able to get more people feeling better, being able to achieve high performance and deep fulfillment, where they don't have to make a choice between burning out or actually having success. I truly believe that success shouldn't come at the cost of your well-being, but it's actually a natural result of high well-being. And if we increase your well-being, your performance goes up, it stays up, it's easier to keep it there for longer. And so that's really what I want to be able to see people uncover, is being able to impact their well-being. And then as a result of that, they burn out less and they perform better, which is kind of tough because they don't have control over their workplace environments. But unfortunately, if you do burn out, even though it's not your fault, it is your responsibility to do something about it, because a lot of organizations aren't focused on that.
Very well said, Mr. Garrett. Very well said. And good luck to your goals, and hoping for more and more and more success. And what will be your
Appreciate that.
and what will be your piece of advice for those people out there feeling burnout?
There's an assessment, if they want, on the website you have there, where they can go through and answer a few questions, and they can kind of uncover what's actually driving their personal burnout. Obviously, it's long hours. Obviously, it's not enough control over their own work. But how it shows up specifically for them, it'd be really great for them to be able to get to know what that is, because that makes it easier for them to make an effective intervention. Because we can't throw everything at you when you're already overwhelmed and burned out. We need to do the one thing that's going to give you the biggest lift. And so the hope behind that is for them to be able to figure out something easy and quick that's unique to them. That's not just good advice, but it's specifically tailored to what they actually do need in that moment. So if they want to take that look at that, that would be great for them.
Yes, thank you for your advice, Mr. Garrett. And how about for those people out there who want to be a coach like you and a hypnotherapist like you? What will be your advice?
Yeah, if someone's interested in becoming a hypnotherapist, there's a program in Southern California. It's called HMI. It's been around for 50 years now, so they've been developing it. It's one of the few programs that is, I don't know, I think it's up to 1,500 hours of instruction. Half of that's been supervision by mental health professionals. So it's a pretty robust program. They do a great job of teaching you the ins and outs of subconscious work. And then as far as coaching, there's a lot of education out there. Make sure that it's approved by the ICF and the governing bodies, and that it actually speaks to you and the type of work you want to do, and you'll find something that's pretty robust.
Let's talk about the breaking the cycle, shifting mindsets and systems. How must high achievers reframe their definition of impact or contribution to prioritize sustainability over superhuman output?
Mm. So mindset's kind of an interesting situation. Mindset often, I think, is framed kind of as like a mind over matter, top down. If there's a will, there's a way. And I do think that that can be helpful in the short run if we are running a sprint, not even a marathon. But there is a larger mindset that's proven to be helpful. One of those is I can learn, I can grow, I can change. The more work I do, the more I'll be able to understand. But that also has limits. It doesn't mean that you're superhuman and you can do everything all the time. Even if you can do anything, you can't do it all right now in this moment today. And so honoring your energy, I think, is really important. And when you start having to use that top down mind over matter, it's a really good sign that you're running low somewhere in your well being, whether it's sleep, whether it's food, whether it's a relationship. If you're relying on that voice every day, all day, something's not lined up for you. There's an opportunity to actually make your life easier and more enjoyable.
Life is too short, people, so enjoy life. Why is admitting struggle, asking for help, or delegating critical for burnout prevention? And why is so hard for high achievers?
Yeah, if you have specialized knowledge and you're the resident expert on your team in your field and you've been doing it for longer, and there's a time bound outcome for that thing to get done, it can be really challenging to bring other people along because the amount of emotional labor, time, energy, and patience it takes to train and develop other people to be as good of an expert as you are is not going to happen in that same time. And so, unfortunately, because we have constraints in how we work, if we have that time bound outcome, we can't delegate in that moment or bring people along for that education. It just feels easier to do it ourselves. And it might be true once or twice. But in the long run, if we don't have a way to sustainably spread your expertise to the other team and replace yourself so you can move on to the next challenge, you're going to be stuck doing it all yourself. And that is really challenging to figure out the time and place that feels appropriate for you and your team.
Indeed. Challenging, people, challenging. How can leaders and high performers reframe rest, recovery, and disengagement not as a laziness, but as a negotiable performance input?
Yeah, I think if we look at health and wellness and even strength training, you can't go full max effort and then set the weight down for 1 second and then pick it right back up and start again. There is a recovery time in every cell and every muscle, and there's different energy pathways that requires different lengths of recovery time. That's also true for cognitive processes, emotional ones as well. And so really, when we're not doing active work, we're still working, we're just working on recovery. And so some people actually don't like downtime. That's what makes them anxious. And so maybe changing from doing something really focused, driven at work to something that's a little bit more relaxing as you think about it. That's actually where a lot of hypnotherapy is beneficial, because you're changing your attention into something that is relaxing and restorative, but you're still directing intentional work towards something you're developing. So it's nice because if you don't like slowing down or stopping, it's actually a relaxing way to channel that focus and that attention where you still feel like you're being productive, even if your system is actually still able to recover. So it's kind of like a little sneaky way to blend both in for those people.
Mr. Garrett, why do traditional productivity metrics fail to capture sustainable high performance, and what should we measure instead?
Yeah, a lot of like productivity metrics is this idea of urgent versus important. And so if something's non-urgent, non-important, probably shouldn't take our time. If something's very urgent, very important, should probably take most of our attention. But just because something's important doesn't mean it's interesting to us. And so if we only do important, uninteresting tasks, we get disengaged from the work, even if we're checking all the boxes. That emotional labor that we're showing up to try to continue to do that is slowly taking its toll on our ability. And we see that in concepts of flow, where people generally feel their best is like lost in the moment, time disappears, they feel great, they come back and they're like, oh, that was amazing. A lot of athletes talk about that. A lot of artists talk about that, whether that's a musician or some other type. Um, if you're able to get lost in your work that way and come back, that's a really powerful tool. Most productivity measures are not talking about flow. They're just talking about urgent, important tasks. And so you may be getting a bunch of stuff done in the short run, but over the long run, it's a way of courting burnout that kind of sneaks past our ability to see it on bottom line spreadsheets. If instead we marked heart rate variability, time spent in flow on tasks, we'd have a much better metric of if we're going to be sustainably productive over time.
Again, very well said, Mr. Garrett. Very well said. What subtle signals like emotional, physical, or behavioral should high achievers heed before full burnout hits?
Yeah, a lot of times we wake up and we're not excited to go in for the day or that task. And that's kind of normal with most jobs. Not everybody dreams of labor and waking up and going and doing a task, but they have to. And so this idea of how much effort does it take for you to get the thing done? For a lot of people, it's really challenging. For others, they can just go for it. But whatever your normal is, if you start noticing that it takes 2 to 3 times that same internal dialogue to get the same amount of work done, or you're reaching for 2 or 3 extra cups of coffee, or your sleep's not as restorative as it used to be, that's a sign that we're already low on that heart rate variability metric is already in trouble. And then, like we talked about earlier with the dog, if your dog's being your normal dog and you're getting less and less patient with it, that's probably a good sign that we're courting burnout too.
Indeed. What's one unacceptable self care, like taking a mental health day, skipping an optional meeting, a high achievers need explicit permission to embrace?
Yeah. So a lot of people follow whatever the culture is, and that culture is typically set by their leader. So we've seen a lot of CEOs for big companies and financial institutions where they talk about needing to be in the office from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. No one can outwork them. And they've built their career off of that expectation. And the culture that falls from that has this idea of being present versus being productive. And they make them synonymous. And when that's the culture that people are in, if you're high achieving, you want to be there. You want to be seen. You want to be present. And so maybe that means logging on early, staying later. But the longer we do that for, the less productive we actually are, because there's only so much brain capacity we actually have. And so that explicit permission may not come from the people around them. It's going to have to come from themselves. And that can be really challenging if they're an externally driven person that enjoys the culture. And so sometimes the best thing you can do is be careful about where you choose to work at and what that society, that system, that culture is there. If you're a really high achiever, that can actually be really dangerous to go to a really fast-paced company. You might look at a slower-paced company. It might be easier for you. If someone's coming in from 9 to 5 and you're staying till 6, you're already the best there is. You don't have to be there from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Mr. Garrett, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in 5th season, abstract poetry in 2nd season, and book 101 review in 5th season 2, comedy 101 in 2nd season, and food 101 in 5th season as well, geography 101 in its 4th season, and my baby podcast, Mental Health 101 and Law 101. Love Letters in third season, Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in its fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Garrett, as we are talking about, if loving your job is not enough, what core practices must high achievers adopt to ensure their passion fuels longevity? Not
Yeah. So their passion, if you're making sure that your passion isn't just about your identity at work, it needs to be about something else too. Because if the organization changes its values from yours, we get in trouble. If you're not able to do the job anymore, like if you get injured on the job and you're a police officer, that's troublesome too. So we have to make sure your identity, your passion is able to be expressed in multiple avenues, not just at work. So whatever that looks like for you, maybe it's multiple passions and you're multi-passionate. Maybe it's one passion in multi areas of expression. That way, when life happens and change happens, you're a little bit more flexible, more adaptable. If that company disorganizes or your position gets eliminated, you still have a piece of yourself that you can take with you regardless of that.
Mr. Garrett Wood, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy as well as your business itself?
Yeah, I'd really like the listeners to go and take that quiz. If they want to follow me on LinkedIn, they're more than welcome to. They can find it there. Or if they're on Instagram, they could follow me at Gnosis Therapy. And my website's gnosistherapy.com.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Garrett Wood, because if you support him, more and more and more empowering coaching to come, more and more empowering hypnotherapies to come. So, Mr. Garrett, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
More to come, people. See you soon.